This gospel text comes from the very end of the book of Luke. And as we know, Luke wrote the book of Acts also, but in the artificial division which we have, there are 24 chapters in Luke's gospel, and then we go into the Acts of the Apostles. Originally, it was all one, but now they're divided. And this comes at the very end of the Gospel of Luke. It's the last narrative in Luke's gospel. It's unique to Luke. No mention of this in the other three gospels. It has a very powerful and fundamental teaching. In our pilgrim gatherings to the Holy Land, and many of you have been on these journeys, when we get to Jerusalem, Jerusalem biblically is the place of destiny. For every one of us, our Jerusalem, keep in mind, is the symbol of the place of destiny, of real truth and the fullness of life for each and every one of us. It's a place of death and resurrection, of the meaning of life. When our pilgrims get to Jerusalem, the first day we go to Bethlehem to begin to understand the journey of Jesus. And now, beginning to address the public life of Christ, the next day, beginning the journey into the life of Christ, we go to a place called Abu Ghosh, 7 miles west of Jerusalem. Biblical scholars will say there are 3 possible locations for Emmaus, and one of them is Abu Ghosh, and it's my favorite place. There's a Benedictine monastery there, and it's a very quiet place for pilgrims to begin to reflect on the meaning of a pilgrim journey. And that's where we begin, reflecting on this 24th chapter of the book of Luke. So let me collect some of the salient teachings that come out of this gospel text. 2 disciples, Cleopas, the others not mentioned, may well be his wife. It may be a couple. And they're walking away from Jerusalem, away from the place of destiny. And as they walk, they're sharing, they're downcast, and they're sharing their disappointment, their failure. We tend to find somebody who says, yes, I had the same experience, and you feed one another's darkness. That's exactly what's happening here. They're feeding one another, being downcast. We had hoped that this was the Messiah who would save Israel. We had hoped, and our hopes were crushed. The novena didn't work. God didn't respond to my prayers. I am disappointed. The church failed me. The priest didn't show up. Somebody in my family let me down. Somebody betrayed me. My children disappointed me. My elders were not a great example for me. Whatever it is in my life that drags down my spirit, and I walk away from the place of truth and the place of destiny, and I am confused, and I am disappointed, and I walk away from Jerusalem. Now watch, the symbols are very important here. They're walking west into the sunset. It's almost evening, they say, when they get to Emmaus. The day is almost over. We have spent the day murmuring, complaining. And as they were walking, with all their disappointment and all the failure, maybe there isn't a God. We used to believe that God watched over us, but now we don't believe that. We had hoped that God would respond to our needs and meet us in our moment of suffering, and God didn't show up. They left a church in crisis. They left a community in Jerusalem that was caught in a crisis of belief, and they walked away. Now, there are good scholars of this text that will say Emmaus was a spa. It was a place where people went for worldly consolation, like the Las Vegas of the time. When people get really upset, they look for worldly consolations. They look for things that are out of character. They abandon the disciplines of life, and they become somewhat reckless at times. They abandoned patience. They abandon forgiveness. They abandon understanding. And they walk away seeking consolation in the things of the world to answer the hungers of the soul. And the world will not satisfy the hungers of the soul. And as they walk along, Jesus walks with them. He doesn't turn them around. He walks with them. People that walk away from the church, Jesus walks with them. Jesus never abandons anyone. And he said, "What were you talking about?" And they begin to explain the conflicts and disappointments, and he listens. As long as they're talking, they don't learn anything. As long as you're talking, you're not learning. They will only grow in wisdom and understanding when they stop talking and they listen. And Jesus says, "Did you not know that the Messiah had to suffer and so enter into glory? Did you not know that it's only out of darkness that we can enter into light? Did you not know that it's only out of doubt that you can grow into faith? Did you not know that if you don't have sacrifice, you can't grow into love? Did you not know that the journey must involve suffering, struggle, dying, failure, disappointment? It's part of the journey toward the fullness of life. Did you not know that the Messiah had to suffer? And you, a disciple, you, a follower of the Messiah, you did not know that suffering and failure and crisis, and it's just part of the journey that leads you toward the fullness of life. And he opens the Word of God, and he teaches them about himself, and in so doing, he teaches them about themselves. And when they get to Emmaus, he appears to be going further. "Stay with us. Mane nobis Domine." Stay with us, Lord. Stay with us. They have a meal. And in the breaking of the bread, now he has made the proclamation of the word. And now in the breaking of the bread, he is revealed to them. And then he disappears. And now they must rely on faith. He's not there. Cannot see Jesus. They have to rely on faith, and their faith is renewed. Get up immediately. They go back to the place of crisis. They go back to the place of pain, of suffering, but now with new eyes and a new understanding. Did you not know that in your life you must suffer, you must die in order to be reborn? Did you not know that in your marriage, with your children, with your community, in our country, we must have suffering, we must have sacrifice if we are to grow and become real and to become healthy and to embrace the fullness of life? How would we not have known that this is necessary to understand the incarnation, Jesus Christ in our own flesh and our own blood. And so, we come to the Eucharist, and we receive the bread which is broken and the blood which is poured out. We receive this to nurture us, to feed us, to teach us. Remember St. Augustine saying, "Be aware of what you are and become what you receive in the Eucharist." Become the Eucharist. You must become the bread which is broken. Become the blood which is poured out. Only then do you understand yourself as a disciple of Jesus Christ. What does this mean to us? It means something to every one of us. There are so many problems in life. They're not meant to be solved. They're meant to be shared. God, you can trust me with blessings. And then I hear a voice coming from the heavens saying, "But can I trust you with the cross?" No, I'm not sure about that. Is that necessary? You trust me with the blessings. Do I really have to have the cross? The humanity of Jesus said so at the agony in the garden. "Let this chalice pass me by, but not as your will, but as my will be done." So wherever you are in your life, you're carrying a burden. You're caught in a conflict. You have some disappointment in your life. Somewhere you have been tempted to say, "How could God do this to me? How could this happen to me? I did the novena. I prayed. I went to church. I did all the right things. How could this happen to me?" And remember the teaching of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Jerusalem is my destiny. The place of dying and rising to new life. Amen.